like sometimes where I was like, am I dumb? Oh Lord. Which fuck is it called? Doctor or professor? What is he, professor? Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Just Shauna here to talk about some friggin' books that I have read recently. These are all ones that I picked up in the month of October. I picked up quite a few. I DNF'd about half, but I read quite a few as well. And these are just a few of them from October. The first one being Strange Beasts by Susan J. Morris. This was a NetGalley e-arc that I was given, so thanks to NetGalley. Trying to keep up on these more this year. Oh Lord. The quick blurb of this one. In this fresh yet familiar Gothic tale, part historical fantasy, part puzzle box mystery, the worlds of Dracula and Sherlock Holmes collide in a thrilling exploration of feminine power. So we are following the daughter of Mina, what is it, Harker. Samantha Harker, the daughter of Mina and Jonathan, I think was her dad's name. And Mina Harker in the original Dracula killed him. And also the daughter of doctor or professor? What is he, professor? She's a doctor, Dr. Helena Moriarty. So from Sherlock, the villain, Dr. Moriarty or Professor Moriarty, whatever the fuck his name is. I don't remember. And yeah, they work for this agency that goes around taking care of supernatural, paranormal beasts and creatures and mysteries and crimes and things. They get put together and things ensue from there. Go try to find this beast in Paris. The TLDR for this review is I thoroughly enjoyed the writing style of this one and the pacing. This was very quick paced. I read this incredibly quickly for me. And I really liked the character development, particularly with Samantha. But then the mystery plot did feel a little discombobulated, a little disjointed several times, where there was like too much going on. Like sometimes where I was like, am I dumb because I'm confused, or is the author being confusing? You know what I mean? And I lean more towards, because I would like go back and read things where I'm like, did I fucking miss this entirely? Like, what are they talking about? And no, there were just times where the way that the author was like writing out what was happening, there was just like bits and pieces missing, and then there was just like so much going on with the mystery. It was a little bit too much in a few places. But I will definitely be looking for more works from this author, because writing style, authorial voice is a big thing for me, and I really, really liked it. And again, the pacing, like I blew through this bitch. Which is very unlike me. Getting into the characters a little bit more, Sam, and her name's Helena, but she's called Hel throughout. They both felt like fully fleshed out characters. Even though we were only in Sam's POV, I still felt like Helena was a fleshed out character, and I still was able to see character development with her. Their internal struggles and their motivations were clearly outlined, and I just thought that for both of them, the execution of their character development was done really well. There is a sapphic romance kind of a brewing here. Incredibly like slow burn, barely there. That wasn't really developed very much at all. We would like kind of see it, not really. The book definitely leaves off like we're gonna see more of Sam and Helena, and I hope that we do. I don't believe it's currently like part of a series, so I don't know if maybe it's gonna be kind of a standalone, like a series of standalones, if that makes sense. I don't know. It felt like it could continue. So maybe it was just written that way, like potentially will be a series, or maybe it's planned to be a series and Storygraph just doesn't have it listed that way. I'm not sure. I didn't necessarily want it to be like primarily romance, but yeah, it just kind of left me a little wanting with that. And then yeah, with the plot, like I said, the mystery plot simultaneously felt interesting and clever, but then sometimes discombobulated and just kind of jumbled and confusing. I really liked the concept of it, and I can appreciate an author not making like things super obvious where it wasn't predictable necessarily, but there were times where it just felt a little too disjointed. Where I'm like, wait, what? Like, you're just confusing me. And I really enjoy the themes here too. Like feminine rage is very much a theme we are following here. And Sam like adjusting her worldview due to her like finally being able to be out in the world. She's been very like secluded, kind of working in her little research area. And she's realizing that a lot of men in her life, and just men in general, do not deserve the benefit of the doubt that she gives them so easily, especially in this era. And she's realizing that she feels incredibly angry about this, about realizing that so many men have taken advantage of her, have used her as a pawn, continue to use her as a pawn, treat her like she's a little bit like naive and stupid, and take advantage of that. And just the way she sees women being treated in general, like other women as well. And women who are kind of tossed aside by society and seen as less than because they aren't, you know, ladies of noble birth and shit. And she's kind of fucking had it. She's over it. But she also is grappling with like not wanting to fully like just go off the deep end and become like this hateful, bitter monster herself. And there was also a lot of conversation surrounding like family trauma, childhood trauma, and specifically with Helena and her journey, realizing that there's been a lot of like emotional manipulation and I would say emotional abuse from her father toward her, and struggling, like gaslighting and like struggling to trust and believe the reality that is in front of her because of everything, how her father treated her and like conditioned her throughout her life. So I liked all of that. So yeah, even though sometimes the plot was a little like, what the heck? I really enjoyed the rest of it, and I am very much looking forward to other works from this author in the future. And I gave this 4 stars, so a pretty solid rating for me. And then I picked up House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig, and I DNF'd it at 17%. This one is a young adult, gothic, historical, I think paranormal. It's like a reimagining of the 12 Dancing Princesses or something, one of those like folk tales. There was nothing really wrong here. I wasn't hating anything. I just wasn't really getting gripped by the story or the characters. And it was feeling atmospheric and everything, like the gothic vibes were there. But the characters and the story being told just wasn't enough to like make me want to stay in it. And I just was like, nah, I'm good. And then I picked up Dracula by Bram Stoker. And I also DNF'd this right about the same percentage at 16% for this one. If it was under like 300 pages, if it was like 250 pages or something like that, I probably would have continued because I was reading through it like pretty quickly, I guess. But it was it's quite a bit longer than that. And this epistolary, like letter diary entry style just wasn't doing it for me. I don't love that usually like epistolary style as like the sole way of telling a story, aside from like the Dear America books from my childhood that are like a girl's journal in a historical time. Like I loved those when I was a kid and I still enjoy those. But I don't know, yeah, this like letters and all that. And also, man, classics, I know the value. I understand the merit and the value in classics. They're the OGs. And like Dracula, you know, and Carmilla, I read Carmilla last year and I felt similarly about Carmilla. I finished that at least because it was shorter. And like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I also picked up just all of these. When I was back in college, like if I was in a class, if I was someone who was like taking a course, I would be more engaged with it. When I read, of course, I like to read a little bit critically. I'm not just sitting here like blowing through and not thinking about thematic things or anything. Like I think about these things and I like to pay attention to it. It adds richness and value to the reading experience for me to like, as I'm reading, like be thinking about these things. But man, with classics, I think it's just the language barrier almost. Like I can understand the like old ye English style. I've read plenty of stuff like that. I mean, Wuthering Heights is one of my faves and that's very much like that. Overall, like it's harder to digest. It is not as easily digestible. I'm not a big classics reader. I don't read a shit ton of classics, so I'm not used to that writing style, that like language. The language is different. How things are worded is incredibly different. I can understand it, but it takes more brain power. It takes more time. It would take more like analysis than I really care to do at this point with classics. I did it in college and I'm just like, I don't wanna to most of the time. So yeah, I was like, nah, I'm not feeling it. Sorry to all the Dracula lovers out there. Again, I understand the merit. I just was like not getting sucked in. Then there was another NetGalley e-arc I picked up, The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong or Long. This I randomly picked up. I don't even know why, because it's like a cozy fantasy. The blurb is: a wandering fortune teller finds an unexpected family in this warm and wonderful debut fantasy, perfect for readers of Travis Baldree and Sangu Mandana. Now, I have not read the Travis Baldree. What, the Coffee Bookshops and Bone Dust is the second one, right? The first one is something else. I don't remember. And then Sangu Mandana, I did read the which, the fuck is it called? Whatever, that one. And I didn't like love it, okay? Cozy fantasy is not always my jam. I tried the Spell Shop as well, and I was kind of like, okay. But like there are some that I've picked, like, I mean, fucking House of the Cerulean Sea, just like love it so much, you know? So I'm not opposed to it, and I like finding it when I can that I enjoy. And I'm happy to say that this is one I very much enjoyed. And this came out, I think it came out November 5th. Oh, so it's not even out yet. Today, when I'm recording, it's the 2nd. So this comes out November 5th. And I definitely would recommend for anyone who enjoys cozy fantasy. The TLDR for me is that this was such a sweet, low stakes, lovely fantasy story. I thoroughly enjoyed the found family. Like, oh God, I love this found family. And the themes and the ending had me tearing up several times. Happy tears, joyous tears. But like, I got emotionally invested. Getting into the characters, I really liked our main character here. Tao was a kind of quiet, fade into the background type. She's not a main character who's like super boisterous and everything. She's not only quiet like out loud, but in her own thoughts as well. She's just perfectly content to kind of sit back and let others do most of the talking in a situation. She's very, very down to earth and chill, and I really enjoyed following her and learning about her story and her background. And the found family was just adorable and so lovely. Silt and Mash are such a fun, like, unlikely pair, these two guys that are traveling together. And then Kina was just like the sweetest, most adorable little doll face, just innocent darling of a human. And we do have some animal companions here that were adorable and super fun, and I loved them as well. For a low stakes, cozy fantasy, I thought that this had just the right amount of depth and character development also. We were able to see them grow and like learn more about them and see them learning more about themselves simply by just like observing them and spending time with them and seeing them spending time together and just opening up their hearts and minds to each other. And the plot, like, it's mostly just our characters traveling from like one little village in this kingdom to another with a pretty loose goal in mind of trying to find Mash's daughter. She has been kidnapped, he believes, and so that's what him and Silt are doing. They're like out trying to find her, and they run into Tao, and then they band together, and then eventually they meet Kina, and she goes along with them too. So that's their like loose goal, is like just traveling around, seeing things. There's a couple of little like mini quests that they do. And I don't know, for me, I'm a pretty plot-driven reader, and this is like a very chill, just kind of kicking it around kind of plot. And it never felt dull or dragging to me at all. Because the point of this story wasn't the plot. The point of this story was the characters. And I think that's why, like, a lot of cozy fantasy, like, I'm not such a character-driven reader, so if I pick up a cozy fantasy and I'm just not vibing with the characters, I'm not gonna get that invested in it. Like, obviously, because the point of it is the characters. And yeah, I mean, that's anybody. If you don't like the characters or... But like I think it's just harder for me to get connected to characters and like engaged and invested in characters than someone who is like a primarily character-driven reader. You know what I mean? So yeah, I really, really liked them. And the themes, like obviously found family is a very, very strong theme here. And I thought it was done very well. And they just learned so much from each other, and it was lovely to see. And then there's also a conversation happening around cultural identity. Our main character, Tao, was born in another country. So she was raised in this new country. Her and her mom are kind of outsiders. There's not a lot of people from her country that are there. So she's racially different from pretty much everyone that she grew up with. And even now as she's traveling around, like she is automatically noticed as like an outsider. So she deals with some racism and xenophobia a little bit from some people and deals with her own internal struggles of not feeling super connected to her heritage and her culture. Because when they moved over here, her mom kind of cut all of that off and was like, we need to acclimate to this new place that we are. And so she was not allowed to continue having that connection to her cultural identity, and she struggles with that a little bit. And that's like feeling that loss and coping with that and grappling with that. And I thought all of that was done very, very well. It was executed wonderfully. I initially gave this 4.25 stars, but as I sat on it, I changed my rating to 4.5. I think it's a solid 4.5. It's like right up there, maybe even a 4.75. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. For being a cozy fantasy that's like very low stakes, it's just like a good time. It was just enjoyable. And like I said, I got emotional. I got invested. Towards the end, happy tears were occurring a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna go with 4.75. Next, I read Annie Bot by Sierra Greer. This is a shorter novel, sci-fi, set in our world, just in the future, where there's a company that creates these robots that they use like frozen like embryos, I think, to create like human-like flesh over these robots. So they look very much like humans, and some of them can grow to be so sentient that they are imperceptible as like a robot. And you can purchase them for like being for cleaning, being for childcare, or being for a buddy. Basically like a romantic sexual companion. I'll read the synopsis for this one. Annie Bot was created to be the perfect girlfriend for her human owner, Doug. Designed to satisfy his emotional and physical needs, she has dinner ready for him every night, wears the cute outfits he orders for her, and adjusts her libido to suit his moods. True, she's not the greatest at keeping Doug's place spotless, but she's trying to please him. She's trying hard. She's learning, too. Doug says he loves that Annie's artificial intelligence makes her seem more like a real woman, but the more human Annie becomes, the less perfectly she behaves. As Annie's relationship with Doug grows more intricate and difficult, she starts to wonder, does Doug really desire what he says he wants? And in such an impossible paradox, what does Annie owe herself? An unforgettable novel that combines Kazuo Ishiguro's exploration of humanity with the powerful narrative drive of My Dark Vanessa. Annie Bot is an explosive meditation on intimacy. Oh my God, I cannot speak. Intimacy, power, autonomy, and control. And Ingrid got this for me, one of my booktube besties, Ingrid, because she read it earlier this year and she really enjoyed it and was like, I think you would like it too. The themes of like domestic abuse that we're touching on here, emotional abuse and everything, I thought it was really fascinating and relatable. And I really enjoyed the framing of like talking about this from the like perspective of a sentient AI robot who is so human-like, but not quite human. And yeah, freaking Doug sucks. He is a great example to me of how insidious and subtle emotional and mental abuse is. Like all of his manipulative, guilt-tripping types of comments and outbursts, like the walking on eggshells, like the type of person that you have to like walk on eggshells around and like, oh, I don't want to set him off, like that kind of insidious thing, the mental mind fuckery, too real. I had so many moments reading this thinking about, God, my abusive ex probably would have loved if I was a robot that he could just flip a switch to change my mood or whatever, or force me to shut up and stay in a closet for weeks. And it was all very, very interesting. It was very, very fascinating to me. With the plot, I read this super quickly, like in a day, pretty much. I mean, and it's shorter, but the pacing, like I was just engrossed with it. It didn't drag ever for me. I did feel like the end was maybe a little bit like too abrupt. I wish there was maybe an epilogue, just a quick epilogue with like a flash forward, because like the very, very ending, like the last like scene basically just felt a little bit like abrupt and then we were done. And yeah, with the themes, it was so fascinating to me to watch this woman, this sentient robot woman who functionally did not have her own willpower and freedom of choice, still be able to recognize like her inner unhappiness with the relationship that she was in, and to still have that conscious desire to leave. Even though she didn't understand it, And she's like, I'm designed to please him. Like, I shouldn't want to leave. But like, I have this feeling and I'm thinking about it and I can't let him know that I'm thinking about it. And she was unable to leave or to stay gone if she does leave. And like, obviously human women, we technically and legally, like in the United States, have the freedom to leave if we choose to, right? And that's what people are always like, why do you stay? Why wouldn't you just leave? But women in abusive relationships, people in abusive relationships, but statistically more often women, and in my experience, you don't leave because it feels like you can't. You are being manipulated into staying. That's part of it. And even when you know you can, and even when you know you should, and even when you are trying to, and you're mentally like trying to get yourself there and like plan for it or figure it out, you can't until you can. And that was also so well done to me. I don't want to get into spoilers too much, but just what ends up happening in the end, like a decision that Annie makes. I really enjoyed how all of that was laid out. I want to say though, so like spoilers for the very ending, so skip ahead to whatever timestamp I put here. If you plan on reading this and you have not yet. So the second that Annie was given that freedom finally, like there was a command that Doug said that like gave her the freedom of choice and the willpower. So her boyfriend / owner was like, you can leave if you want to now. It's okay. The moment when she had that switch flipped, she left. Like the minute he was like, you can leave, she's like, all right, bet, I'm out. And like, I liked that because in my experience, that was how it was. And I think that's the experience with a lot of real life human women who are in these situations. You get to a point where enough is enough. And you are no longer going to be manipulated, convinced into staying or going back. You are done. And it's just like it, to me, it felt like a flip got switched. It was a slow, maybe more of like a dimmer. It was like a slow turning it, oh, go back, oh, turning it. And then finally click and I'm out. And I just really like that. Like how with her, it was a literal like flip being switched in her brain, like in her computer chip of like, oh, I can go. Okay, I'm out. And I just really liked how that was done. So yeah, I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. Quite enjoyed this. Definitely is one that I could see myself rereading in the future, especially because it's shorter and whatnot. I just enjoyed it. I will say content warning for a sexual assault, a rape. I mean, I will let you know, it's it's a sentient robot that we see that has this happen to her, but like we're in the scene with her. And there is a bit of a detachment with it because for her, the experience feels different than it would feel for a human woman, obviously, with our framework and social conditioning and everything and being actual people who are taught that our bodies are our own. She's a robot who is created to not be her own person, right? Like she is owned by this man. So that's how all of them are. Like they are created to please their owners. So it's a little bit like different. There is a detachment from the POV that we're in, but just as a heads up that is present in the story. And obviously content warning for like emotional abuse, mental abuse as well. But yeah, definitely recommend. And I did talk about this more in my recent long-ass vlog. There's timestamps, so if you wanted to see it, me and my best friend went on a hike, and when we were sitting on a rock in the woods by a creek, we talked about this book a little bit. And this one is also in that vlog. Range of Ghosts by Elizabeth Bear, another DNF. This one I stopped at 12%. This I was doing for that Storygraph recommendations vlog. And I just wasn't vibing with the authorial voice and the writing style. It felt, I was very detached. I was not getting gripped by the story. I was not getting engrossed with anything. I was like, I don't know what it was about it. It just felt tedious. So, you know me, I'm not going to continue. And that is it for now. That is, I think, 6 books, 3 of which I read and 3 of which I DNF'd. Let me know if you have read any of these or the ones I did actually read. I enjoyed all of them. Strange Beasts, Teller of Small Fortunes, and Annie Bot. All very enjoyable. Do any of those sound enjoyable to you? Are you planning on picking any of them up? They're all new, either brand new releases or Annie Bot was earlier this year. So they're all 2024 releases. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.